Yeah, I mean, we talk often. We talk a lot, and it's nice to have my brother from another mother to participate in some conversations we're going to have. Um, you've been instrumental in a lot of my choices in life, and these are the things that even sometimes I take for granted. Just looking at my parenting journey and my kids, and obviously everyone knows I don't come from the conventional family nucleus in terms of my kids and their upbringing, but it's nice to be able to gauge my experiences based on what you had the capacity to provide for me and the stability you provided for myself and my brother and my sister, and try to translate some of those things to my own children. And of course, parenting looks a little different for me, of course, but as we know, God gives you everything, all the resources that you need to be successful in whatever your endeavors are. So, I'm just happy to still have my dad around, to be able to just ask some questions about my son and stuff, certain things. And it's a blessing to still be able to do that, because I know a lot of young men don't have that opportunity, whether because their parents aren't really involved in their lives, or maybe even some parents have transitioned to eternity. So I'm blessed, and I'm appreciative of any opportunity I have to just sit and just chat with you and just catch up, and even get some of your wisdom.
Well, even as a parent, as I listen to Jay talk, I mean, parenting doesn't come with a guidebook and a guidebook of don't do this, don't do that. It does not. You bring into your parenting your experiences that you experience as a child and as an adolescent, and then as an adult, and you bring those all into your experience. And I come to find out that God uses whatever your experience is, bad or good, right, for His glory, and He can use that. Somehow God is wonderful for as Jesus did, manipulating the circumstances for His glory. And so I find if I turn it over to Him as a father, if I have any questions, I can go to Him, and He somehow can get in the mix of fatherhood and say, this is what you have to do, because every child is different. Every child has its own travel, has its own road to travel.
Yeah.
And life is like that. We each have a road to travel. But the wonderful thing about life is that as we travel that road and we gain these experiences of life, we're able to help others along this journey called life, whether bad or good. We can't knock what happens to us, because it's going to happen, whether it's bad, negative, or positive. But what we can do is ride above that occasion. And, for guys, it's to man up and say, I'm going to rise above this occasion and do better than I've done before. And so that's the case of even being a father and a husband, and a friend to my sons. Not too friendly now, because they take advantage of that. It's a point of
Chizzy take advantage of somebody? No, not Chizzy.
So let's be clear.
Chizzy take advantage of his own father? No, not Chizzy.
Let's be clear. Anybody that knows me knows, and you can experience that. You experience that yourself. That my intention in my heart is always to be of support, to be of service. But I also take advantage. As you often say, I'm gonna take my blessings when I get them. You know what I'm saying?
Preach.
Because in the work, in the stuff that we endeavor to do, and you and I have, as everyone knows, we've done a gamut of stuff for young people in Bermuda. Now we're doing stuff more nationally, internationally. We also have needs as well, whether it be financial needs, whether emotional needs, whether it be spiritual needs. And it's very important to continue to keep our cups full and filled by individuals like my dad, by your mentors, by other people that's in our lives, because this choice of service requires a lot of us. And I think people also undervalue the necessity but just continue to pour in ourselves so that we can continue to pour out and to pour into other people. You can't pour from an empty cup, so it's important to continue to have that cup filled. And so,
But as we get this thing started, I kind of want to highlight the fact that we all kind of come from this space of having a healthy father, right? Me and Chizzy, we both have healthy fathers in our lives. And to your point, Chizzy, we come to a place of awareness where you realize you have that, but you also realize you've been operating out of that subconsciously, and most people don't.
Yeah.
What I love about what you have done, Papa Powell, is that, okay, you have it, but you said to us, for some of our listeners who just came on, that you love what me and Chizzy is doing because we put the go in gospel in the sense of we got the good news, we have the information, but we didn't just keep it to ourselves. We was conscious enough to say, hey, we got 1,000+ subscribers. We in 4 or 5 different countries. We got multiple people, hundreds of thousands of people who consume our content online. And we're just about helping as many people as possible because we understand not only that we have this idea and mission, but we also know we had healthy fathers in our lives, and we know less than 10% of men, particularly men of color, had a healthy, long-standing. I'm in my 40s. I have a healthy relationship with my father. He's in his 40s. Separate of having your father just alive in your 40s, that you have a healthy relationship with it. But talk about Papa Powell. You set the precedent of, yes, you help them develop and mature, but also a lot of all your children are active serving others in some form or fashion. And I'm pretty sure that influence came from home. And so talk about how important it is for us not to say, hey, I got mine. I know what the good news is. I'm a believer, or I know how to be a good man. But also, I'm going to take what I know and take what I have and help somebody else.
Yeah. Well, Chris and Shay, the serving others has been always in my nature, in my as coming up as a young man, and as you said, that came from my dad, who served the family, and my mom who nurtured the family in walking with Christ, even though my dad wasn't a Christian at the time, but he came and provided for his family and taught us that that is something that you always do as a father. But not only that, but he provided a family atmosphere that he was always available. Not the times when you liked it the most, when he had to usher any punishment or anything else like that, which was anything major that my mother couldn't handle, my dad would take care of. And you dreaded to hear those words, you wait till your dad comes on.
Man.
You wait till your dad comes on.
But let's talk about that. I've heard that. Chizzy's heard that. You heard that. And my kids, I heard my wife say, do you want me to tell your daddy? No. So that's interesting that we've all had that, even though we was in 2 different countries, we all that precedence that, hey, don't let me get your dad involved. And more importantly, he was involved. He was available. If necessary, he was that intervention. How we all got that in our psyche and how that helps molds and shapes us as men,
It's the expectation as well, too, right? Because, when you have this looming fear factor, and I think it's a necessary fear component that comes with that's essential to being to being a parent and to being a father. It's a necessary fear factor that should be instilled in your children to know that, all right, mom, she rules with iron fists, but when dad comes and he lays down both of his fists, you already know what time it is. Like, that's where the buck stops, so to speak. And
toxic masculinity, we're getting canceled. He's talking about a man stepping up. But they're canceling this episode. They said a man is stepping up and taking charge of this home. It is not balancing the home. We're getting canceled. Chizzy, you can't say that. You can't say that online.
I mean, I guess I'm just speaking my truth. You already know what the world's perception is. It's sometimes skewed. But I think it's a necessary, again, there's been numerous studies that proven the absence of a man and how that plays out in young people, in children, in the community. So there's no mystery to that.
The census stats from 2020, Pop, I don't know if you were, but the U.S. Census and Global Citizens like stats of 2020 to 2020. So 2000 to 2020, those 20 years, they was able to grab family services data.
Mhm.
And it showed distinctly, nationally, and in some respects, any modernized society where you took the man out, depression went up, dropout went up, molestation went up. Like it was so many other variation that kicks in, so much so that the data showed that it is just as healthy for a two-parent household to raise kids as it is fathers by themselves raising the kids.
Yeah.
But if you have just the mother raising the kids, they're 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 10 times more likely to get involved with antisocial, mental health challenges, relational dysfunction, trauma-based experiences, just extreme heightens just with taking the man out of their household. And let's put it in full context, a mature, masculine, responsible man.
Yeah. That as we know it's because of that lack of that responsible, that man that's there all the time. Then we have this lapse in society when it comes to our young men. In fact, we, during my experiences as involved in church and activities, I used to be involved with young people from the age of when I was 31 when I came into the church. And I saw in dealing with young men, and we used to take them away for 2 weeks on an island camping, right? Camp Hope was the name of the camp, but
what was the ages of the young men?
the ages were from age 7 to teenagers, 19,
Wow.
19. And the development of these men, because we saw there were more and more boys, especially, and this was boys and girls, but the man dealt with the boys.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw that these single parent homes with a mother doing it love to send their boys to be around men.
Yeah.
And and we just took it on as a service to the community and a service to that parent, and more and more we started getting, as time went by, we started getting more and more single parent boys coming to camp with a whole lot of problems. Right.
I just want to throw, not to cut you off there, I just want to throw something in there, right? I know from my personal experience, even at Camp Hoop, that a lot of the interactions I had with the older men there were relationships that I continued to build throughout my adolescence, through my teenage, even to date. You know what I mean? So I want to kind of dispel, I don't want to say a myth, that only the father is responsible, can be responsible, should be the primary influencer for young people. The truth be told is some men don't have the capacity to do it. Some men are not available, whether it's to death or imprisonment. And this is for our female viewers, the importance of male influences, positive male influences. If you don't have a dad, I get it. If your child doesn't have a father, if there isn't a father in the home, that's understandable. But the importance of having male influences to your sons in particular is vital to his overall development, whether that's a family friend, whether that's an uncle, and so because we recognize that not everybody has the full capacity of a father in the household, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he can't get what he needs from mentors in the community. So that's what I experienced when I went to Camp Hope, and I had a father. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking about all the young men who would come to camp as well, who didn't have the conventional family nucleus, who didn't have a dad at home. But it's super important. I can't understate this, that men, young men, especially from a right young age, we're talking about before they even get to adolescence, because we know scientifically personality is formed by the age of 6 years old. So if you're talking about, not having a father, a male figure in a young man's life, the trajectory for him to enter into antisocial behavior gets greater and greater and greater the less he's involved, less men are involved. And this is not just for young boys, it's for young women as well. And that's a different,
Sure.
obviously, side of the spectrum.
Yeah.
But the male influence on young men is vital. And although we know this, although we recognize where the deficits are in our young people, part of what we do, part of what you do, what we all do here is continue to stand in the gap and advocate for that, for having an initiated man, influencing other young men, because it's ultra important. It's super important.
Yeah, and I think we keep quantifying that too for our viewers, is that positive, mature, responsible men, right?
Sure.
And so, for me, I would take, like, let's go there with the ladies as well, because some of that's always like, oh, the young men. Got messed up some kind of way where usually like the kids will get a double and we'll get a king, right? And so it's like, me and my wife got one room, the kids got one room, especially because they're teenagers. My kids need their own bed, etc. But we both had doubles. So my kids love crashing me in my wife's room. So we're watching the Olympics, I think, or the opening ceremony, something like that. And Jada's in the bed with me, right? And so I was explaining to her, like, hey, it is not actually natural for humans to sleep by themselves. It's a social conditioning that you create. And then we started laughing about the times when they would try to sneak in our bed. And I was like, remember y'all used to crawl on the floor to try to sneak in our bed? We used to and y'all used to try to figure out which side mommy was on, because she would always let you in and I would always make you. I had to train you not to sneak in our bed because it was such a comfort.
Yeah.
And I was just like, as my daughter's getting ready for her senior year, this is a very practical way of you just wanting to be available. We talked about it, Pop. Want to be available. We were snuggling, and I was explaining to her like but the level of comfort it gave her just to be in a bed with her father, knowing that I'm not going to violate her, I'm not going to abuse her, I'm not going to disrespect her, I'm not going to dishonor her. Like it's a level of comfort and safety of just having that moment. And I was just thinking, like, man, how many young girls who are 16, 17, 18 years old never had this type of dichotomy, this relationship, this depth of relationship and conversation where they could just be in a bed with their dad and it could be a conversation about life and everything that comes with it. And we just fall asleep together. And that was about 2 hours of conversation till we both fell asleep. And then she was like, I'm going to my bed now. I was like, bye, baby. But it was just like that little moment. It's like you be a dad for those moments whenever that happens 16 years down the road. Talk about how, as our roles as men being essential, is also essential to the women in our lives.
Yeah. Well, with having one daughter, and she was my youngest, and we actually chose her because she was adopted. And I had to, in her life, all her life, had to remind her that you were chosen by us because we love you. We learned to love you. Yeah. And that was something that she needed special care as a young lady. Right. I was the only dead or male figure in her life because her dad was a deadbeat dad, never took up his responsibility. And even her mother never took up the responsibility of bringing up her daughter. And so we had to, as parents, we had to really work hard as being a parent to her. She rebelled, obviously, and she did rebel a lot. And we had a lot of prayer sessions for that young lady. And long story short is that now we have a relationship that is so close and so surpasses everything that I was expecting to have with her. And I'm the only father that she has in her life. And I see that whenever she talks to her dad, which is me, it's with so much respect and so much loving care. And Dad, I'm glad you're my dad.
Come
You
on.
know,
And how old is she now?
that's right.
She's
Because
37,
Have,
38.
has she said that to you recently, Pop?
she said it to me recently. She said it to both of us recently. I'm glad you were in my life. Because I don't know where my life would have been without your influence. And sometimes we have to get tough with her. I mean, really tough with her, you know. And she made a lot of pitfalls. And I don't want to talk about her business, but she made a lot of pitfalls, but we were there all the time.
As we all
As a family,
yeah, for sure.
both her brothers and us were always there whenever and every time she was in some kind of pitfall, who was she called? Not her natural mother or father, because they were in there, but the father and mother that took care of them. And I'm saying that to say that the relationship was built upon um, her knowing that we would be there for her.
Mm-hmm.
We won't desert her at any time. Even if she made a bad mistake in her life, we won't desert.
Yeah. And Chizzy, I want you to speak to that because I know how you feel about your baby girl, man. So talk to the people.
Yeah, man. So of course my land is well, for my sister. Like she's the only sister I knew. She's the sister that I love. And I definitely, embraced her. Even I remember as a kid when she came in to the house, I was like, I'm the youngest. Like now I got a little sister. How does that work? Because I go from the youngest, getting all the attention to now I got to show that with my younger sister. And for me, we bonded immediately. I remember as a kid, we was living in Rockaway. She when she came, she would just lay on my back. I'll be sitting there watching TV and she would just lay on my back and watch TV with us all. You know what I mean? So, I always embraced and I understood that, I have a responsibility as an older brother. And how that translates now into my own daughter, the intentionality is slightly different for me now because remember, I don't come. My daughter doesn't have that convenient and that conventional family nucleus. So my intentionality with her is very different. So it looks a little bit more intentional. It looks like I'm sensitive to even her apprehensions as it relates to how she perceives me, because there was a time where after leaving and going back to Bermuda, the only interactions I really had with my daughter was through video call or me traveling. So now I have to kind of reprogram.
I remember that. I remember you doing video calls while she's getting her hair braided in the morning for school, but how much she just wanted to talk to you before she went to school because you were doing it every morning.
Every morning. And that's so for the guys who are out there who don't necessarily have that conventional family nucleus, who are still trying to be instrumental, because remember, a young lady, and it's parenting a girl, parenting a boy is very different as we all could speak to, right?
Yes,
ladies,
it is.
young ladies,
I don't care what
especially.
nobody say. It is different,
right?
bro.
Yeah.
It is different.
It is.
And because the young lady, the first man she grows to love will be her father. And so how she interacts and how she chooses when they get to that dating stage of their life is determined by the first interactions and the love that she felt and the expectations she's now going to put onto that new partner, onto her boyfriend, whether she gets a boyfriend or a husband eventually. She's gonna interpret that interaction based on the interaction she had with her own father. So for me, as a daddy, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna make sure my daughter receives that I'm the resource, that she ain't got to go to no other guy for anything, that,
Mm.
I'm going to take all those dates. I'm going to show her how she's got to be respected by a man so that when she gets to it, she knows that, well, my daddy does all of this for me. Like, you got to step your game up because I know at the end of the day, this is how a man is supposed to interact with a young lady. This is how a man is supposed to respect a young lady. This is the leadership and the guidance that a young man is supposed to have. And that has to come from the first love, which is me, similar for you with Jada, similar to you with Tanisha. It comes from the first interaction, the first love, first meal that they interact with the most and the man that they fall in love with.
Yeah, and I want to give it back to Papa just to say, like, it's interesting to hear because I got so much. I got Pop in my ear, raising your daughter. I was adopted, so I know the dynamics with that. I watched Chizzy for 20 years with his parenting, and I was always admired by his parenting, the way he was just so intentional. And so for me, I go through this phase with my daughter between when she turned 12, now she's about to turn 17. So it's been about 5 years of just navigating. There has been no script. It's been like she's going through something and I got to figure it out to still support her while I don't ruin the relationship. And I got to a point this year where I said, Jada, look, I'm like 5 years tired, right? I said, baby, I am who I am. I'm wired the way I'm wired, but I am doing all of this out of love. You need to understand. This is what you need to understand. Will I get it right all the time? No. Will I always have the right suggestion all the time? No. But you need to know how much I love you. She's like, Dad, I do. And then a situation came up this year. And she said, and it was about staying over somebody's house late. I'm in a teenage phase. She's in the last year of high school, so it's about going out all the time. And I was like, that's a problem for your dad, right? It's another reason why this is a problem for your dad, right? Let's go over this one more time. And I was like, Dad, I can't help that I am the way I am with you about this because I actually care about it. She said, Dad, I like the way you are about it. There was the first time in 5 years, Pop, that she was like, you do too much. You're not like the other parents. They dad don't even do this. They don't even have their dad in their life. But now she's been through all the way through high school. She's seeing how the girls are calling me. Like two of her friends went from calling me Jada's dad to hi dad. Like they love me being around, being available to her for all her games, picking her up. And it's like, man, we look forward to seeing you, knowing that you kind of always going to have all the boys are scared of you, blah, 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 blah. But like it went from, man, my dad's doing the most, man, my dad's in my life, man, my dad's protecting me, to now she's like, I actually like that you're always in protection mode. You're always looking out for me. You're always thinking about me. For her to say that this year, this was the first time she said it. And I was just like, thank you. You know what I'm saying? You ain't gotta say you love me, but just understand, like, my energy is not coming from some iron fist who just don't want you to have a life. I actually want you to have a life, but my mind would never stop thinking about protecting you, never stop loving you. So I said, help me help you. And I'm trying, but I need something to work with. You got to communicate. You got to make curfew. You got to do certain things so that I can help let you blossom into who you're trying to be. You know what I mean? So that's my rant. I don't even know what to say to that, but I'm just saying, shoot my shot. I got a little feedback this year.
Those little nuggets keep you going, like, you know what I mean? And even though it's not verbalized sometimes, one thing we do know when we're consistent with our kids, one thing you have to understand as a parent is that even though they don't get it tomorrow and they may not tell you they appreciate it, in the long run, on principle, because your God is asking you to do what's necessary, you're getting buried fruit of all of those efforts that you put in with your daughter.
And that's what I was saying about Pop. It was so refreshing. He said, we went through this, we went through that, we went through this, we went through that, but got to our 30s and we got the best relationship ever. You know what I mean? So much so that she verbalizes that to both of you now.
Yeah, in fact, she taught me how to really love. To really love. She didn't know how to love herself. And it was, and we had counselors upon counselors to talk to her as a young lady coming up, right? But she really didn't know how to love. And we had to teach her how to love by our own actions.
Wow.
Yes, firm when you miss the mark, be firm, right? Being firm, and she not liking it at all, right? Not liking it at all, but and consistent, and she not liking that at all either. But we would not let go.
And Crump, I'm gonna ask you a question because I know you could relate to this. I can't relate to it because I've never been adopted. My parents are my parents. I want to know because in listening to my dad talk, I don't know what it feels like and only anticipate and think assume. I don't know what it feels like to be in a family nucleus that's amazing. And in the back of your mind, there's still this, but what happened to these people who gave birth to me? How did you as a young man and we kind of may have touched on it in the past, but I kind of want to hear from you because we're on the topic, what that felt like growing up, if even now as a grown man, how you were internalizing that paternal separation, that biological separation that's there from your dad from Oklahoma to your mom and your paternal parents. Speak to that a little bit for us.
Yeah, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
It's the elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Whether somebody else recognizes or aware of it, which usually is not the case. They
Mm-hmm.
really don't know how much you're battling with it. But I was a kid. I had the mental fortitude to put it in a lockbox in the back of my mind. Some kids made a diss. That's not
Yeah,
your real mama and daddy. You know how your cousins are when you're playing out in the schoolyard. My mom had that conversation with me. I had it, put it back. Don't never talk about it again because I love my parents.
Sure.
Uh, but it wasn't until that box got open when I had Jada, because
Mm-hmm.
they tell you stuff like what's in your bloodline, what's your family medical history, and it's like, well, I can tell you my family medical history, but it's not my blood family. I don't know. So I don't know. So basically, you keep saying I don't know, and you see your daughter, and then your daughter looks like you. She acts like you. She got sinuses. She got
Yeah, yeah,
acrylic in her hairline. She like literally like you realize how powerful genes are. Like
yeah.
for the first time in my life, I never had blood of any kind in my life until I was 23 years old. So that was the first time I was like, wow, this is powerful. So I'm doing pillow talk with my wife,
Mm-hmm.
and she's like, you should. They got so much apps out now. You should go look for you. I'm not looking. All right,
Yeah.
done with the pillow talk. We're not talking about it. But then I had CJ. And when I had CJ, it really started to throb at me like, where's my bloodline? Like, where's the lineage? I was thinking about them. And then I was thinking about this. I not only put it in a lock and a chest in the back of my mind, but I lied about it so much by just making up stuff when I was a kid, not to talk about it. Like I just didn't
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about it. And after CJ was born, I was start to express publicly. So I started talking to the Nadine hearing, and so CJ was born in July, and in November, my mom reached out to me on
Mm-hmm.
Facebook. Hey, I'm looking for my son. I know you don't know me, but just want to know you on your Facebook profile have the same birthday. Just want to ask you, are you adopted? Man, we did the DNA test. Boom, boom, boom. And here I am now. This is what takes me out. I've been independent since I was 18. So much so I've been helping my mom and dad.
Yeah.
And still to this day, like 20 plus years, I'm still in that space. But like I was telling my wife, me and my mom, my biological mom, we do have a dope relationship now. And I didn't realize I would need a relationship with my mom in my 40s.
Yeah.
I didn't realize in my mind how I was raised. Hey man, you get 18, you a man, go off and live on your own. You don't think that you're gonna have a relevant relationship with your parents as an adult. You don't really process that until you are adult. And the spirit, the understanding that we have, like she will send me messages when she feels bad energy. And I'll be going through something. She'll just send me messages, send me love. Like, so like my biological mom, our relationship is really, really tight. And because I was older, because I was in my 20s, because I was married with children, I had made some mistakes. So when they told me that they put me up for adoption, they was 21 years old, and I was like 27. I can see how at 21 years old you could be like, "Hey, I got no job,
Right.
I got no degree." But I wasn't idealistic. I wasn't a young kid hurt, blaming my parents for my life. I was a mature adult who realized, even as a good person, even as a person trying, you still make mistakes. So I had more compassion about the situation. When I first met him, I told him I forgive him and gave him a hug. They was like the relief that came over them
Yeah.
in the moment. Like it wasn't like they hugging and I hugged my mom and told her I love her. I mean, she melted in my arms. Like
Mm.
she felt like one of the worst people in the world. And so they began to tell me their whole history. It was black, white, and couldn't be together in the Mississippi. You know what I mean? They had to hide the relationship. One thing led to another. They had sex, went away, boom, here I come. Off to abortion, adoption I go. And then here we are 27 years later. And I'm grateful because she's a big part of my life now. She's
Right.
a big part of my support system.
Yeah, with our daughter Tanisha, it came in her teenage years, that search for who's my mom? Why did she not love me enough? To all of those questions. Yeah, and when I say she taught us how to love, is that through that darkness, that unawareness in her life that she was going through as a teen, um, I had to we had to understand what this was happening. And it was not a reflection upon our bringing her up and our loving her, but it was a reflection of her having that desire to want to know why my mother never took me, why my mother gave me up. She had some misinformation that was shoved to her, which turned her against us sometimes. So all of that and going through it, it taught us how to love, what it really means to love a person, you know, unquestionably, but still be firm in what you are doing for that person, for her maturity and for later on in life, what you prepare for. She was at home, she was the nicest child you could ever see. But then there was this other part of her that she was just running wild with. And we had to address that on several occasions and still maintain the love. And, you know, my wife can tell you that she used to write a lot in her diary, like a book. And it was not pretty. It was not pretty in what she was writing. But these are all the emotions she was going through as an adopted child, right?
Yeah.
And all of that love we were showing to her, right, really didn't matter in her perspective at that time.
Yeah.
So
But
later on in life,
it still helped get
Oh,
y'all
for
through
sure.
it though.
yeah.
And I think also, right, when it comes full circle, when start, I remember, Tanisha's, we've always had a relationship with her other side of the family, with her mama. Like we've traveled together. They have a really good relationship now. My dad could probably speak to a little bit more about the intricacies, but for me, as a brother on the outside looking in, especially in the work that I do and I did with young people, and how I can see where that divide is between a child who has a fragmented relationship with their parents and what that looks like when they come on the other side of that, and so the dad now starts to take part, he starts to come to stuff, he starts to communicate. And so you can see a shift in a young person from the moments when they were still questioning this love component and all the acting out and all the antisocial behavior they get into, you know what I mean? To the point where now the real parents, the paternal parents are now involved, and you can see them turning the corner, and you could see how this light bulb kind of goes off in a child's eye. I'm saying all that to say that, you know, in your situation, in my sister's situation, I would bet my bottom dollar that a lot of the development, positive development that you experienced, that she experienced, was directly related to you coming to terms with, and even meeting, building a relationship, and having that I can now exhale moment, because now there's a piece of you that's somewhat complete. It may not be perfect, but there's a part of you that has now been added that was missing when you was experiencing all of this fragmented feelings and emotions that you were feeling back then. You know what I mean? So for our listeners, our viewers who are saying, man, I'm probably going through that. I feel like I don't know. I don't know how to approach my parents. I don't know where to look. You know, it behooves you to really, really take a deep dive and exploration, especially for you, you had that same experience, especially when it comes to now you're a parent and how that translates into what energy and how, you know, how your children have to now have a healthy development. And so you can only, it only starts with you. It starts with you first.
Yeah, and I see, and what I've seen is I was telling them, Pop, I was vastly insecure because of all of this. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Being biracial, being kind of in a family, kind of not in another family. Like, it really, when you're a kid, it causes. So my thing was, I was a people pleaser. So I would attention seeking, people pleasing.
And you don't even recognize it most times when you're young. When you're young, you don't even know.
No,
That's so
no.
true, Chris.
Yeah.
That is true.
So
And that's what
yeah, go ahead.
that's what was being experienced by us as a family, by us as being her not her natural parents, but you know, the parents that came into her life and what she was going through in her life as she learned who her parent was, her mother, her parent was, you know, on both sides, her father and her mother, but mostly her mother, then resolving that and seeing that she hasn't been a mother to me, but she's my parent, but not a mother. And that comes to she came to recognize that. And this is the enemy. At some time in your life, you have to make a decision, you know, of a decision that this is what it is. And I either stay mad or stay angry with everybody, or I just come and take what God has given me as a blessing of having somebody that looked after you and cared for you during those years, right? Without any inhibition. They didn't have to,
Right.
but they did it out of love for you. And she learned that. She learned that, and I see it in her children.
Yes.
I see her relationship with her children.
The intention.
Very, very protective, very dear for her children, right? Firm, but very always there, displaying her love for her son and her daughter. You know,
and that's what I was getting at, is that once I got that healing and I did forgiveness, my children move in a whole different spirit. Like they accept the black part of them, the white part of them, the blood, the adopted, the Bermudian, the American. Like my kids, like they just like, hey, this is my truth. But like, because they fully are aware of all the dynamics.
Right, transparency, for sure.
They're very like comfortable in their own skin. They're very assured of who they are. Me and my wife talk about it all the time. Like, our children are very okay with them being the way they are into the world. Not like they have to like be this kid with us and they're gonna be this other kid outside, which I had to struggle with. Like, I would be the person I need to be, and then I was going out trying to find the person who I felt like I wasn't. You know what I mean? Whereas my kids, like, they're really steady no matter where they are, who they are, and adults love it because they're like, man, your kids are so. But it's like they know their truth. They know everything about my daughter. Was an open book, and I told her, oh, I promise. It was like a parent promise to myself. I said, one thing I won't do with my daughter, because she asked way more questions than my son, because he's just a truth teller in of himself. But my daughter likes to ask questions. I said, I will not lie to her. And she asked me something. some challenging stuff, some stuff that I'm not prepared to answer. I would say sometimes, but when I think about my response, I'm not going to lie to her. I don't have to be vulgar. I don't have to get overly detailed, but I'm not going to lie to her. And that, because she's been questioning me about adult stuff since she was 12, but that has like also like reassured her of what she wants to do, what she doesn't want to do, and how she wants to show up in the world. And I'm just so grateful to kind of be there in those moments, but also to get my healing so I don't pass down my trauma to my kids. And I'm seeing that they are a whole different space because I got that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the level of comfort for a young person to want to even have this conversation with their parent. Because remember, sometimes we see, sometimes as a parent, like I know I'm real cool. I know I'm cool to everybody, but that doesn't necessarily mean that my children think I'm cool or even cool enough to have those hard conversations that I think that they should want to have with me. You know what I mean? And all we can really, 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 really do is just be as open and honest, and like you said, be transparent and let them know that you're available when they have conversations, when they have talks, and show them that home is where the love starts. And at the end of the day, this is your solace. This is where you find peace. This is where you find nurturing. This is where we would like to build a place of comfort for you. And these are the things that I try to translate even to my own children, given our circumstances, and try to create a space that they feel that even though mom is there and we're divorced and we're doing our best to co-parent, it's ultra important, even more important now as a single dad, to be able to create a space where my children feel more comfortable. Because for me, it was natural because my parents are hurt. For you, it was natural because your parents were. For Jade and CJ, it's natural for your parents were. So I'm kind of advocating for the single brothers now, where you have to be more intentional now as a single guy, having to combat and having to navigate co-parenting with a young lady who you may or may not get along with, and what that looks like for your kids. So your intentionality has to be different. Your patience has to be different. Your communication has to be very different. And it's not an easy thing to do. It's something that I struggle with myself. I still have challenges with my own son at 21 years old, trying to just get him to just share the ideals that I thought he got, that he may not have got, that now he's rebelling against. And so I have to now center myself. I was talking to my daddy earlier when he came. I was like, man, this guy, it's just going left, going right. And it's just like, look, all you can do is pray for him at some points and be consistent with what your expectations are too.
Be consistent. And this is for anybody that's going through this. Consistency is the key that they see in your life, and they will measure you up. I was, and I give an example. I was in a camp, and a young lady approached me, in the camp, and she sort of like took me off guard because she said to me, why aren't you consistent in what you're doing, like administering and being a disciplinarian, and this a kid.
She called you out like that,
So it took me back.
And it forced you to evaluate.
And
you know what I'm saying?
Not to value.
Those kids that we used to do that we dealt with that, the government RTS system.
I do remember.
We had them in our camps.
And they keep you on your toes.
And they keep you on your toes. And we as a committee had to be consistently driving the same message across, right? You can do so inconsistent with them because they'll get mixed messages.
And they'll tell you, hey, eat it. Like what? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, for what I do want us to speak to before we close out is, I was thinking about this prior to the call. You guys are incredible men who I've been blessed to know for almost 20 years now. And, you talked about your daughter. Talked about her being 38 and kind of really highlighting and the stuff you've been through. I was talking to my wife. I was like, Bay and Chizzy, this is going to blow you away. In a couple of years, we're going to be together for 25 years, married for 20. Like, we're gonna be together for a quarter century. Pop, that's
We're
blowing me
planning to
away.
be reunion. We're planning to be reunion, cruise reunion. Yeah, that's
But I'm saying all this to say a lot
yeah.
of men get discouraged in the journey, right? Because there is no trophy for being a man of the household. There is no bonus for
Yeah.
being a man in a household. There is no bragging rights for being a man in a household. Sometimes there is no catering to, because it comes with the territory. For men who are struggling because they feel lonely, they
Yeah.
feel they're not appreciated, they feel like they've been dealing with this for a long time. Me and Chisholm have kind of talked about this in hindsight, where he's like, man, I wasn't playing a bigger picture sometimes, like encouraging men who are in these trenches. They feeling the weight of these things, feeling the weight
Mhm.
of, man, I'm trying with this child, it ain't working. I'm trying with my wife or significant other, we're bumping our heads. I'm trying with this job, and it's like it's day to day, it's month to month, it's bills on top of bills. For the men who are in it, and they just got their head down, but while their head is down, they feel discouraged, they feel lonely, they feel even not supported, feel not heard, feel not respected. What can you say to just encourage men who are taking up that mantle, who are not abandoning their posts, who are doing the best they can, what they know, what they have to manage their responsibilities?
Well, first of all, it's to realize what your purpose is as a man, as a father, yeah, and say, I don't know what the relationship is with your significant other, your wife or your girlfriend, but to always be upfront, right, with the situation. Don't back off from the situation. Don't think I'm going to hide my head in the sand. Wait till this passes over. No, you have to go through it like your children are going through it with it, your wife, and you have to actually take on the mantle that God, especially if you're a God man, that God has placed before you. It's hard, it's tough, you know. Um, it's and you can't shirk away from the responsibility because just like God takes you as you are,
Mm.
right, you take on this responsibility as a father, as a man of the family, as you are, and you build on the experiences that that of others, your support system, right? And if you do have a wonderful relationship with mother, right? All of that builds into your building a foundation that will help because the aim is not you. It's not about you. It's
Mhm.
about you being used to be that person for the child
Come on.
that they can trust, that they can come and at the end of the day, maybe not now, you may not see it, but as they get older and mature and even get their own children, they'll come back and say, Dad, I remember this. I remember how you went through this situation with me. All right. So the journey is not for you. It
Come
is
on.
for you, but it's mainly you're looking at the other person.
Right.
And if you keep your eyes focused on the other person, not your hurts, not your own pain that you're going through, um, it's like being a servant. You don't look for the accolades. You just
Mm.
do what you're supposed to do. You know, you don't look for a payday, and it might come later on
Mm.
when the child says, "Dad, you were there. You didn't give up on me." You
Mm.
know, and those are the times when you just rally in your spirit and you say, "Wow, thank God I was there for, and I stuck to it." You know,
Mm.
and it does get tough. It does get tough, but future is future, and what's written upon a child's life, right, starts from right now.
Sure.
Starts from right now. And as a pastor, as a youth leader, as a camp leader, I learned that these children taught me a lot,
Mm.
which I applied to other situations, you know. So life is like that. It'll teach you a lesson that you can teach other people lessons too, you know. And that's how it goes. That's how it rolls.
I don't know if I can follow that up.
No, Chizzy, you follow that up because I'm definitely not following that up. Chizzy, go ahead,
I'll
man.
just I'll just simply say that I use the analogy of the rain, and when it rains, you have to be prepared for the rain. And so that means you put on your rain boots, you put on your rain jacket, you put on your rain hat, you got your umbrella. So my analogy just simply means if you're a man struggling in this space and you're in a rainy season in your life, also know that the sun eventually is going to come out. And how does the sun come out? Because you're doing your preparation, you're putting on your rain boots, you're putting your rain jacket, and you're doing all the small things that are necessary to prepare you for the rain so that when the sun comes out, you ain't gonna need none of that. So you're built up enough of self. And I'll encourage anybody to take a necessary analysis of self, analysis that you need to be able to sustain you. So the brothers that struggling, that feel like they're not making headway with the children and they're banging their head against the wall, it's okay to step back for a hot second and not analyze self and build yourself back up so that you have the wherewithal and the fortitude to be able to persevere through this challenges time. And it's because the sun is going to come. Make no mistake about it. Every parent experiences it, whether you're in the conventional family nucleus, or whether you're a single parent, or whether you're a bachelor, whether you're the only parent. Every parent goes through the pits and valleys of rain and sunshine. And it's what you do when it's raining is what matters, because those are the parts that we need to build up the most, because the sunshine will come and you're not going to need anything in the sunshine. But in the rain, you need a self-care. You need initiated brothers. You need people to hold you accountable. You need somebody. You may need to change your circle. If you can't identifiably say, I have a guy in my life when I'm going through struggles who could build me up, who could pour into me, you may need to evaluate your circle and move differently. You know what I mean? But tangibly, take necessary time for self-care, for you to figure out yourself, because you're of no value to your children if you have nothing for yourself.
And I could build on that of what he's saying, and it's about having those people around you that are good for you.
Mm.
Just listening to what you're talking about is enriching me.
Yeah.
Just having this conversation.
Having friends around you that are good for you. You know, I said good for you, that they're not gonna bring you down, but try to raise you up, try to build you up. Actually, they become your accountability partners. You know, they hold you accountable. You know, nah, you're supposed to be doing this. You know, I'm gonna hold you accountable because that's what I'm here for. And if you see me going this way, I should be going that way, then you have the responsibility as my good friend to hold me accountable. Um, and it doesn't matter whether you're a Christian or a believer or not. The problems are still the same.
Yeah, it's how you approach them.
It's how you approach them. The one thing that a believer has is that he has a God that he can call upon in his time of trouble, right? And God tells him, you know, cast all your cares upon me, and I will care for you. Not only that, he also says, the steps of a righteous man are ordered by the Lord. And so you have this feeling that God, you're in this. If I keep my way right and righteous, then you're in this with me. Yeah. And that's a powerful thing to have, you know, to know that God is there with you. I can't see him, but I know he's there because things just happen to, and I say not happen, but things that turn out, that look bad, turns out for your good and his glory.
You didn't know you was getting traction today, did you?
And listen, I'm just sitting back and I'm gonna give you a good synopsis. I'm gonna give you my synopsis of Pop.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget you being on here because you said two things. Me and Chizzy always says the journey continues, right? You said two things to add to the journey that we've never had before. So I want to thank you. You said, first of all, the journey is not about us.
Yes.
And then you also let us know that we're not alone. And so I really want to thank you that now when we say the journey continues, becoming the king that God has called you to be, I think as men, what you really helped me like resonate in my heart in saying that slogan is that remembering two critical things about the journey. One, that me going through this journey is not about me. And two, me going through this journey, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
And I think for every man, and we could wrap up this episode to remind you when me and Chizzy say the journey continues, we're saying that in this full context of Papa Powell, Pastor Powell, that you're not alone and it's not just about you in the journey. You know what I mean? You're doing it for others, man. Pastor Powell, Papa Powell, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We can't wait for your episode to drop. Make sure you tap into the Boy Man King podcast. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube. Make sure you follow us on IG. Make sure you share and let everybody know these jewels they're getting for powerful men about the wisdom, about how to continue to become not just a boy, not just a man, but a king, and to remind you that this journey continues. Chizzy, any lasting things you want to share with the people?
Hey man, you summarized it nice. You summarized it well. It's always nice being able to sit here next to my guy.
Come on, man.
And
What an
Chizzy's
honor. Give
goodness,
honor where
man.
honor due.
You know what I'm
Pastor
saying?
Paul, man, we
Praise
thank you,
God.
man. We appreciate you. And to all of our listeners, man, we'll see you on the next one.
Yes, sir.
Amen.
All right. All right. We finished that on YouTube.